Hi there, welcome to Chrysalis on the Couch. I'm Kay and I'm your host for today. I'm a Chrysalis tutor and I've been doing that for many years. And today I'm joined by Jaswinder.
Hi there, everyone.
And Jaswinder's also a tutor. And we've got Joanna.
Hello, hi, I'm Jo and I'm a second year student with Chrysalis, just coming to the end of my second year, and I'm also practicing hypnotherapist.
Thanks. And Mick.
Hello there, I'm Mick and I'm also with Chrysalis. I'm also in year 2 and coming to the end of year 2 now. But yeah, I'm practicing to be a counsellor and psychotherapist too.
Okay. So please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. We have lots more of these coming up and some very interesting conversations. And today we're talking about the benefits of nature. Now, nature has always been really important to me since I was very young. I spend a lot of time outdoors, and I think it's got loads of benefits. And it just makes me feel alive and more connected. And I've been out this morning and today the sun's shining and the colours of the leaves on the trees are so beautiful, the reds and the oranges and the yellows at this time of year. And then when you walk on the grass and there's all leaves rustling and it's just so beautiful. And it just improves my mood immediately if I get outside amongst nature. So what's your thoughts on it, Jaswinder? What do you find beneficial about nature?
Well, oh gosh, the benefits are huge, I think. And I was thinking the same as you today. I haven't been out for my walk yet. I was thinking I'll go after our session. And the sun is out. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's been heaven the last few days with the sun coming out the way it has. I mean, you know, when you go out for a walk on a sunny day like this, it actually helps you to deal with so many things in terms of, like, it clears your head. It helps you to, you know, go over things in your mind. If there's stuff going on, you know, you've got to work through things, or you've had some negative emotions come up, or even if you're planning things for the future. That thought process that goes on while you're out in nature, whether it's a walk or sitting in the park, or it just helps you to deal with that in a much, much better way. And at the same time, you're de-stressing, you're lightening the load of so much heavy feelings. But I also found, for me, when I went years ago, when I went through a period of depression in my life, I found that the very act of the feet touching the ground was very grounding, and it brought all the energy down into the feet and touched the ground, which is nature. You know, so it's really powerful. It really is. There's just so many benefits.
I'm always talking to my clients about getting out in nature, you know, and the benefits of that. And I've actually got a sign which I found, nature is the ultimate antidepressant. You know, and I think that's true. If people can get out and just be around, it's not the same going. People say, oh yeah, I went to the shops. That's not the same as being around the trees and the plants and around water and, you know, beautiful scenery, is it?
I think it's quite telling that when I speak to my hypnotherapy clients, and part of the consultation, I know I'm asking them where their happy place is, and so that I can use that in a session. I've not had one client that's ever said, oh yeah, my happy place is Oxford Street in London or whatever. It's always invariably woodland, mountains, sea, somewhere natural. Always. Well, I don't think I've ever had it where it isn't. So
I had one
I think that
client.
tells you quite a lot.
I did have one client. He said his happy place was in bed, but other than that, yeah, it is normally outside, isn't it? And mine is this imaginary walled garden, which has just got amazing colours and, you know, really affects your senses, because it, you know, it's the sights, isn't it, that we see, or the beautiful colours of nature, but also what we feel and what we hear, you know, bird song, what we touch and the emotions it brings up within us.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you, Jaswinder, I mean, I hit rock bottom a few years ago, and it took a Herculean effort often to make myself get out for a walk. I'm lucky enough to live in the countryside, but you know, that was kind of at my lowest. That was my challenge for the day. If I did that and I did nothing else, that was what kept me focused, and as you say, kept me grounded. And you just get a great sense of perspective as well, because again, it's a bit like looking up at the night sky. It makes you realize that we're so small, and whilst our problems matter to us, and at the time they might be like, oh, you know, exploding our heads, actually really, in terms of life, the universe and everything, it really doesn't matter that much, and you just helps bring you back that grounding perspective, I think.
I think that's what it's like being up a mountain. I've got a very big hill near me, and just climbing up there and looking and seeing everything look so much smaller, and it gives you a new perspective, doesn't it, on life, and just how small your life really is, and there's so much else going on. So yeah, I like being up a mountain. What about you, Mick?
Yeah, I think it's massively underrated, really, and I can't emphasize enough to people how quick you can go from a state of mind to another state of mind being outside. I mean, I urge everyone, if you can, dig a pond. If you can, if you've got a garden, even if it's a small one. You touch the ground when you do it, you're involved in the earth, you fill it up with water. Even if you put your hands in the cold water, that's really good for your vagus nerve, and it's really good to bring you down and calming. Cold water is really good for you. You know, if you just put your hands in pond water for a little while, you'd be surprised how different you feel. But you did one in the winter, when obviously there's not so much sunlight and stuff like that. You wait till spring, and you'll see all the benefits of it. And I try and do it. Try and tell people with young kids and stuff like that. It's the best thing you can do for your kids, or even yourself. You'll spend hours just staring at that, watching all the stuff grow and looking into it, looking at all the stuff that comes about it. And I just think, I mean, I think it's massive. You try and explain to people, and when they do it, they come back and they, wow, you know, I went for a walk. It's just taking you straight back to neutral, really. I think all the things like you say in your mind and stuff, it gives you a bit of thinking time. It puts everything into perspective. But I think as well, it's because it does lower cortisol. You know, it brings everything down. It is good for your mind. And although vitamin D is good for you, sunlight into your eyes is proven to be really, really good for you. You know, it just completely changes your mood. There's been about 10 studies, I think it was, and it just said that your mood and self-esteem is massively, it takes a massive advantage from it. And I think, you know, it's something that really should be put out there more, because I don't think there's enough on it, really, and people don't really feel the benefits. I mean, you could take most major cities and towns, and you look at them, they've all got big parklands, and they've got quite a lot of wooded areas around them. Yeah. And that must have been done for a reason. You know, why didn't they build on the whole of that? You take London, for instance. There's a lot of parks and that in London. They must have known years ago the benefit of it back then. You know, especially in Victorian times, they must have gone for a walk through, say, St James's Park, and just completely changed their mood. So, you know,
it's a shame. It's a shame we're building on so much of the land, isn't it? Because we need more of that countryside to stay, don't we? We need this, you know, the trees and everything that's happening in nature affects us, and we just need that greenery around us. We need it to stay, not disappear.
Well, I think Marco Polo, in a diary from, I don't know when it was, I'm trying to think when it was, I read this in 1272, he noticed on his travels that people in built-up areas were a lot hostile and nastier than people we visited in open woodland or farmland type of areas or open areas. He noticed the mood change in people back then. He noticed it was completely different.
That is so true. And I have my boyfriend, he's from London. He's always lived in South London, and we're a few years in now. And but that's one of the first things he noticed when he started spending more and more and more time here with me. It was exactly the same. He was just like, I cannot believe how we'd go out for a walk and we'd talk to 10 people, and just everybody was just friendly and lighter. It just fun, and that really hit him. Well, so much so that he's going to move in here. So yeah, he says he couldn't live in London anymore now.
Well, I think so many people are doing that now. I think so many people realise, especially now that people can work from home and everything's a lot more digital. And that's the problem. You've got like that side where everyone's sitting at home on digital stuff, you know, sitting on the laptops all day, and then you stare at the telly of an evening, say. They're coming out a little bit out of these towns and cities and realising how much different their life feels or can be by just moving out a little bit, but they can still work, where years ago you probably couldn't do that. You know, you had to be sort of near a sort of major town or city if you had to get to offices and stuff. But obviously the lockdown taught us that you don't have to do that. And I think everyone realised how much different they felt in lockdown. The aeroplanes sort of disappeared from the skies. People took more notice of birdsong. People that have never listened to birdsong that often, they started noticing it more.
Well, I have, Mick. I always have.
Yeah, I always have. I've been a
Because
bird watcher since I was about 12 years old. I've always been into bird watching and stuff like that. I used to draw them. But I think that people that not really inclined to do that have noticed it, you know? You get
I know.
I've noticed a bird more.
Yeah, I mean, people think I'm a bit wacky anyway, but you know, I'll be driving along in the car and I'll be like, oh, look at that cloud, and people are like, well, it's just a cloud, you know. They don't appreciate that, you know, it's just a cloud, or it's just a lake, or it's just a bit of grass. But to me, it's just amazing, you know. I just find the amazement with it all.
Well, I think important. Sorry, Jaswinder.
Yeah. Well, just from what Kay was saying about the cloud, it's just I kind of like wanted to say that I actually feel that, you know, like all of this nature, the clouds, the trees, the sun, the water, everything has its own spirit, has its own energy. It talks to us. All of nature, they talk to us, because, you know, when we talk to certain flowers that are dying and we talk to them nicely, and then they start to liven up, just like, you know, the trees, etc. And there's a lot of ancient, I mean, you know, practices that are coming back on so many different things. And one of them is actually forest bathing. That's coming back big time. It's a Japanese ancient Japanese art called Shinrin Yoko. Yeah,
I'll try to pronounce that.
Yeah, so that they obviously knew that, you know, some trees like pines and cedars, they give off like an oil, like an essential oil type aroma. And when we're bathing in the forest, we take that in. It's like getting a enriched enriched shower of this beautiful greenery just out in nature. And it's just amazing. It really is. But I do feel that everything in nature does have its own spirit, definitely.
And its own use, you know. For us, if you think about plant medicine, you know, I only use natural things, but there's so many plants that are give us so much benefit, treat different illnesses. And I mean, a lot more research is being done on that sort of thing as well. But yeah, I don't think people do realise just how beneficial some of the plants and the trees are. You know, they just go to the GP for their medication, don't they? And don't think about what you can actually get naturally.
Yeah.
But I think, I might be wrong, but I mean, a lot of our pharma medicine has its origins in old-fashioned apothecary, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so you know,
yeah.
with so to bulk up the scale of production and so on and so forth, it's all become man-made. But originally, the origins, the molecular structures and whatever it is that does the good, that's where it sort of all originated from, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. And all the old tribes, you know, they knew about all of that stuff, didn't they? And we've just sort of lost that wisdom as we've gone along, really.
Well, there's a tribe that I think is part of the Amazon or somewhere out there, and there was a couple of doctors visiting this tribe quite a bit, and basically they've been out there for centuries. There's hardly any cancer cases or anything like that. Hardly anything like that, because obviously their food is just what's around them, and the surroundings they live in is obviously the forest. But he said, the doctor said, he can't believe it. The only thing they're ever going to get is things like infections and stuff like that. He said that's all we ever deal with them. He said we go there and we don't see hardly anything like, there's no heart disease, there's no cancers. It's unheard of in these tribes.
Yeah, they've got far less stress though as well, haven't they? As well as, you know, probably eating better and living in a better environment. The stress will be far less, won't it? And I mean, in nature, you're in touch with the natural cycles and rhythms of the earth, aren't you?
Yeah.
And that's how they're living. They've probably not got all the technology that we've got. And I know there's benefits to that, but on the other hand, it's just so nice to be away from it all. I really notice that when I go away and I don't look at my phone as much, and I haven't got a laptop, I haven't got a TV, I'm just, you know, out in nature, and it makes everything feel better. My eyes, for a start, when I'm on here all the time, my eyes get sore and tired. And then when I'm in nature, it doesn't happen at all. So I think being out in natural surroundings is just so beneficial, and stress is just so much less.
I think it's very important now, especially with the younger generations, because obviously everything is more digital. I think it's very important to get that education across now. Because I think, obviously, maybe when we was younger, there wasn't a lot of stuff indoors that you did do. You was outside a lot more. You know, even if you lived in sort of a suburbia or a town centre, you was outside. I've noticed now that children really are not outside as much, and they are more inside. I'd say sort of 60-70% of the time now, really. And I think it's got to be educated. It's got to be educated to them or the parents, that getting outside is so important. You know, it is really important, and it plays a massive part in developing.
And getting dirty outside as well, like you said, rubbing your hands in the earth. You know, because I think people's immune systems are getting weaker. Because there's so much cleaning. I mean, especially after COVID and everything, everybody's like sanitizing their hands 1,000 times a day and stuff. And we need to get our hands in that dirt outside and get our immune systems working well, and nature can do that for us.
Yeah, and that reminds me, actually, there is in India, as part of yoga therapy, they do a specific mud therapy where you put mud all over your body and it clears out all the negative toxins. And, you know, so it kind of purifies everything. But yeah, children these days, I mean, I remember when I was growing up, there was so much more freedom for children to go out and play on their own. But because children are so much more at risk now, you don't get children doing that on their own so much. So that's part of the, they don't have that kind of freedom of adventure really to just go off out and do things. There are so many more restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, I know the world has changed a lot, but we have mobile phones now. We can know exactly what kids are doing because we can get in touch with them. I remember when I was young, we didn't even have a home phone, let alone a mobile phone. And I went off playing, down the fields, and my mum didn't know what I was doing. If I didn't come home on time, she'd have to sort of come out looking for me. So I think there was just less worry. And then maybe people are just too worried about stuff now, because of what you hear in the media and stuff, and so a lot has changed. But I think it's really important that everybody gets out, young and old.
I think the main important, or one really important factor, is to remember, if you go out and you get yourself out, is to be in the moment. Don't take all the stuff with you too much. Don't take too much of the stuff with you and carry it, because before you know it, you've walked around this beautiful place that you've walked around and you've not even really seen it or took it in. I think it's very, very important to be in the moment, be in that present moment of whatever. Just shut everything down that you leave that door with. Lock it away for an hour or 2 hours, or however long you're gone for, and try and get out and take in everything that you see. And that, I think, is where the benefit lies, is there, because you're sort of shutting down a part of you that's maybe stressed or overthinking or whatever you're doing. And you can completely, it's like having a respite. And I think it's important to do that while you're out. And I think,
even like 5-10 minutes outside in your garden, connecting with a tree that might be in your garden, just if you're really limited for time. So 5-10 minutes, somewhere very, very local nearby. It's really important. That presence of nature.
I was going to say what I think you were saying there, Mick, as well, is it's almost, although it's helpful to go out to walk your dog or whatever, you actually need to be doing it mindfully, really. That's the thing, because it's very easy to think, oh God, I've got to walk the dog. Right, it's another tick, and you're walking around and you're on your phone and someone's calling you and all the rest of it. So I mean, I always leave my phone behind now. I leave it at home, and I always make sure that when I'm walking, there's lovely woods around here, I get to a certain point and there's this beautiful canopy, and I just stop, whether it's raining, whether it's sunny. I just stop, just close my eyes, listen to the sounds, breathe in, and just take just a couple of minutes just to actually really feel it and do it mindfully.
Well, that's what I was saying. Well, I think one of the keys to it is actually doing it. And like you said, leave the phone at home. Leave your phone at home. Any distractions at home. I mean, it's nice to take photos sometimes, but turn the stuff off. Just strip yourself back to neutral.
Yeah, I think I'd rather turn my phone off than not take it, because I have got lost before. And I had to phone someone, like, I'm in the middle of the forest and I don't know where I am. So turning it
exceptions off, for you then, Kay. Perhaps you should take a flask and a backpack as well then.
Change your clothes, some food, but no, I've actually done that. I've taken the dogs out. And I mean, I've got a country park around here in the lake, and it's beautiful, and very often I don't see a soul. But I've walked the dogs and I've got almost back home and realised that I haven't appreciated any of it, because I've been thinking about, when I get home I've got to do this, and what am I going to get to eat, and then I've got to do that, and just constantly going ahead and not enjoyed it. So, it's about making a conscious effort to turn your brain off, isn't it, and just focusing on what's there.
Take it in. I mean, it's so good to have an interest in, like, say, birds or wildlife. You look at stuff, you try and work out what it is. I mean, you can tell a bird's shape in the sky, even if it's just a dark shape. If you look in a book, you can see that every bird's got a different shape to it. A woodpecker, it's like a laughing cackle, and it'll fly like that across the sky. You can tell that, and you can't even see the colours. You can't see it's green or red and white or black. And it's just something that your brain connects something else to, you know, it takes you away from all the other stuff. I just think it's really, you know, it's so good for you.
Just sitting looking at the ripples on the lake sometimes I do, and you know, the ducks and the swans on there, and just it's so peaceful. You know, water connects with our emotions, doesn't it? And it just makes you peaceful watching that stillness of the lake. And then other times going to the beach and when it's windy and cold and the waves are roaring in, you know, and you sort of appreciate the rough with the smooth. That's how life is. It's always the rough and the smooth.
Yeah.
And it's
I've
also
had such magical animal moments as well, because the wildlife. I remember one morning I was out early and it was sunny, and I walked up this hill, and this fox, we just met and looked at each other and both stood dead still because I didn't want to disturb it, and it was obviously a bit scared of me. And its coat in the sun was just so red, and we just had that moment where we just looked at each other, and it was just magical. It was just so lovely.
Yeah, there's so many. Yeah, sorry. You know, when it was just a few weeks ago, it was really foggy one morning. I don't know if it was where you are, but we had a lot of fog. I was getting up. I got on my way out to go and teach. In the fog, I could see the bushes, but there was these massive spider webs. And I could see the spiders in the middle of the spider webs, but it just looked so magical because everywhere looked white. And then you saw these green branches and there was these massive spider webs. And it was just so beautiful, so picturesque. I did take a picture actually, because it was just so magical. So yeah, connecting to all the different
They're lovely on the frosty mornings. You get the white webs, don't you? And you know, spiders are so clever to do that, aren't they? You know, it's just amazing. And again, sometimes we just don't appreciate the other forms of life out there, the wildlife. You know, we think humans are like the top dogs. I mean, they're not to me, because we can't survive without plants and animals. So, you know, they're more important than us, I think. But people just don't always appreciate things. I think people get caught up in their own lives and what's going on for them, and focus on that instead of seeing that there's so much more. There's so much more.
One of the things I do when I'm out for walks is, you know, like earlier Mick talked about being very mindful and being present and taking it all in. So I really make a habit of doing that. But what I do is I look out for feathers. I collect feathers. I've got so many different feathers and I make feather wands. But what I do is, like, you know, earlier on I was saying about the spirit of the feather. I just, you know, connect to the animal that the feather belongs to and say thank you. Thank you for connecting with me, because it brings that kind of energy closer to you. And it's almost like on a transpersonal level, you know, you've connected with that animal. So yeah,
that's wonderful. A really pretty one.
Yeah. This one is actually from South Africa.
Right.
I collect them everywhere I go.
Yeah, on the feathers thing, I'm not a tremendously spiritual person normally. I'm not sure about angels and things, but just after my mum died, my daughter and I were sitting, we'd just been to her house for the first time since she died, and we were sitting in the garden in the sunshine, and out of nowhere, this beautiful, soft, white feather just landed on the grass in front of us. And she was like, my daughter was, oh my goodness, look at that. And then we turned around, and from no apparent source, there was this other beautiful white feather. And they just came to rest, one in front of her, one in front of me. So we've taken those, and they're in a little cabinet my mum's things, you know. But you can't. I couldn't just pass that by and just think, oh, it probably was coincidence, but you know, it's made me feel connected, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's a proven, isn't it? I mean, they've done so many studies now that obviously your mood, your self-esteem is all massively improved by this. You know, it's so many, like you were saying about the forest bathing earlier, the Japanese, what they do, it's all for their nervous system. It's all to bring the nervous system back down. So it's not something that you going, oh, it does, you know, maybe it does. It does, you know, it's been proven so many times. And I don't know if you see Springwatch a couple of seasons back, they actually did something on this, and they did they did stuff on the brain. They took someone and put them in studies on the brain and how it changes when you're out in nature, and it's all different chemicals released. So many different chemicals released, and also like you're saying about the stuff coming off trees and stuff like that. That's proven as well. You know, there's so many different chemicals that come off of different plants and out of the earth that affect our bodies, and it's all out there now. You can see it more, and they can study the brain and how it changes in an environment within a certain amount of time, just being outside and doing this.
I watched
sunlight.
Go on, sorry, Joan.
I was just going to say sunlight makes vitamin D. That's a fact.
Oh, yeah.
GPs even prescribe walking out for that, so that's recognised, you know, to get your vitamin D levels up.
I've just watched the Global Fungi Summit, all about mushrooms. Absolutely fascinating what mushrooms do under the ground and how they connect everything. There's this whole network. They said it's like the internet, you know, and everything is connected. And trees, mummy trees are talking to baby trees. You know, they're learning so much about all sorts of things that we didn't know before, and it's all really fascinating.
Well, I think the thing is as well that everything has a purpose. It's not something's not evolved for no reason at all. Although you might not like, you know, you might not like wasps, you might not like rats and stuff like that, but everything has a purpose. Everything breaks something down. Everything eradicates something. Everything helps the next thing. You know, everything is there's a whole chain and it all works. And unfortunately, I think the sad thing is that we're slowly breaking that chain. You know, in respects, we're breaking that chain works, and that's quite sad. And I think we need to sort of rein it back a bit.
Yeah, well, hopefully there's enough people, you know, getting the message now and sort of putting out there what we need to do, and we need to sort of keep our planet going, don't we? We need to look after it better than we have. I think what's interesting, they've also done research on you know, there's some people that can't get out in nature for one reason or another, and they've done what they did is show nature pictures on a screen to people, and just by doing that, the person's benefiting from it. Their mood changes. So, you know, if you can't get out, there's the most beautiful videos, like you can get on YouTube, meditation videos where you're watching like waterfalls and rivers and mountains and stuff, and just doing that can help change your mood.
Well, I think when people watch David Attenborough programs and stuff like that, you know, I don't know anyone who's not interested in or was not interested in watching The Blue Planet or whatever he's doing at the moment. I think everybody immersed themselves into that, because you immerse yourself into a completely different world, but it's a natural world. And I don't know anyone really that couldn't sit there for 5-10 minutes and say, oh, this is boring, I'm fed up with this. You know, no matter what it was about, you just got immersed into it. And I think that's why, you know, I mean, he's massive, isn't he, David Attenborough? He's so good.
The only reason I don't like looking at that is because animals get eaten and by, you know, other animals, and I know that's all part of the natural world, but I don't like seeing it. I don't want anything.
No, but I mean, not all the programs are about the predators and stuff, but I mean, some of them are just obviously all the survival. I mean, there's ones on mating K, you're probably like, I don't know. it's all sorts. But
Yeah.
I think it's just like you're saying about the screens and about just bringing that, like the people that can't get out, because it's quite important to remember that not a lot of people can get out. I mean, a lot of people are stuck in flats in inner cities, you know, and it is impossible for them to really get out. People say, oh, you've got a window box, but it's not the same. But and you've got to remember, then people do need to get out. And like I was saying earlier, that what Marco Polo noticed, all these people hemmed in with each other, you know, they're on top of each other, it causes for friction. And perhaps if we did spread out a little bit, or something was done to get people out a little bit more, and a more incentive to get people out into these open spaces, you might break that chain a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a guy who in lockdown, I can't remember his name, but he's won awards now. I think he's got all these sort of People of the Year awards and things. He started a Facebook group called Walk the Mind to help people in lockdown, people who are lonely and so on. And basically the idea of originally was he'd suffered from major depression and he'd sort of walked himself out of it. And it was to encourage people to go out, take a photograph, post it in the group. Now I was invited to join that group in quite its infancy, so it was probably 500 members, you know, whatever. Well, I mean, I don't know what it is now, but I mean, I'm always getting posts from there, but there's hundreds of thousands of members now, so it's a real community, and so, you know, things like that, it's very positive because it, you know, it was enabling people to, you know, post their photos and also share a little bit about themselves. It was like some common ground that people could share and say, I'm feeling really down today, and then the rest of the group would sort of pick them up a bit, and it's a beautiful thing. So I mean, I would say that if anybody's looking for any inspirational motivation to get out more, you know, check out that Facebook group, the Walk the Mind group, because it's big and he's won awards now and he's becoming quite well recognized as a sort of mental health campaigner. But that was all based around walking around in nature. So,
and there's a lot of people, and there's been some books written on it where they've sort of been at their lowest ebb. Maybe they've lost their job and their house, they just need a whole new change of direction, and they don't know what to do with their life, or they're just feeling really depressed and they don't know what to do, and they go walking. There's people that have like walked miles from one side of the country to the other, and when they've got to the other side, they're like a new person. They know what they want, they know what they're supposed to be doing, you know, it's just given them clarity.
I was speaking to a guy recently, about 2-3 weeks ago, and he's always been involved in working in London and in the city and stuff like that, and he's moved out this way. He actually wants to retire early now. He says, I want to base my life around walking. He said, it's completely changed my outlook. He said, I never give it a thought before, but he said, now I've tried it a few times. He said, I've put the walking boots on. He said, I pinpoint where I want to go. He's researching all these little places to go within reason. And he said, I want to change my life, to base my life around that now. It's completely changed. He said, I've calmed down. He said, I'm not so pent up. He said, he said, all I want to do, he said, I just want to retire a bit earlier than I planned. And he says, I'm going to just immerse myself in holidays, walking and doing stuff like that. It's completely changed his attitude towards day-to-day living.
Mm-hmm. It's what we were designed to do, to walk.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, that's why we had legs. You know, I guess at the most basic level, we weren't designed to sit in cars and sit on sofas. We were designed to do yogi squats and, like, you know, and
sit on the floor.
Walk.
Yeah, that's it.
It is, you know, like you were saying, like some people can't get out. It is still a big problem for the ethnic minority elders, because a lot of the ethnic minorities, like the Asian and Black communities, even, you know, like 20 years ago, I remember when there was rises of like diabetes and other mental health problems. It wasn't in the consciousness of the people to go out for walks, and it still isn't to to a certain degree. I mean, the younger people or the more educated people or the people that know there's so many benefits, they understand this, but there are so many people. There are communities that I know where it's just not in their awareness, and even when you tell them, they can't understand or grasp the benefits and you know, make the effort of going out for a walk. But there's so many elderly people now that are just stuck indoors, and there's not really any help or support for them to get them out. I mean, I occasionally take my mum out when I go down to the river, but I know of so many other elderly people that are just stuck indoors and they're just not getting out.
And I think, you know, it's hard, and some people may be disabled or ill. I know I can't walk as far as I used to because I've got a dodgy knee, you know, and it prevents me going as far as I'd really like to. So we do get limited, and there's a lot of elderly people that couldn't manage to walk anyway. But of course, we don't have to walk. I know someone who, she takes her mum to the car park of like a big country park, and then she manages to just walk maybe 50 yards where she's immersed in the trees and the grass and the colours and everything, and she just sits there for a couple of hours. You know, and that's beneficial. I suppose it's doing what you can do, isn't it? And if you can't, then maybe bringing up some beautiful clips on your laptop, or doing something where you can see and hear, you know, the sounds of listening to water. That's lovely, isn't it? Even if it's rainfall, sometimes just listening to the sounds can be really beneficial. Smelling the roses, as they would say, you know.
I remember when I was a kid, my grandparents lived on a North Yorkshire farm, and as they got older and older and were unable to move so much around, at the time I used to regard as the most boring afternoon in the history of the world was we would go in the car with a rug and a flask, and we would sit at the top of a hill and look over the moors at the view, and they'd open the windows, and my granddad would go on about birds and, you know, and what have you, and I used to sit there as a kid just so bored out of my brain. But I kind of see what they were doing now, you know. I mean, I used to think, what's the point of just sitting here looking at it? But you know, it's that was my immaturity. But yeah.
Well, guys, unfortunately we need to stop, because I think we could talk for much longer about this subject, but we're limited in time, so we do need to stop now. Thank you so much for joining me on the couch today. If you've enjoyed this, please do give us a like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll be back with another one soon. But for now, we need to say cheerio. So see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.